Where do you see the relationship with China going during the course of the the Obama administration? Is this going to be a partner, a strategic competitor? We've got different phrases about the relationship with China. Where is this going? So, Amy?
Sure. I actually think China is one of those issues where there's much more continuity with the Bush administration than many people think. But I think that the relationship, and the end of the Bush administration, there were pretty good relations with China. But that had a lot to do with China's management of the relationship as much as with the United States' management of the relationship. So this question is, will China be a responsible stakeholder? That's the buzz phrase that was used in the Bush administration. And so far the evidence suggests that China is working very much within the international order, right? Working within WTO agreements, working within regional frameworks, whether it's military alliances or whether it's other kinds of agreements, counterterrorism agreements. China, and I think one of the key tests of China's, whether China's going to work out to remake the system or work within the system is North Korea. And so we saw the crucial test, North Korea tests a nuclear device. What was China's reaction? China's reaction was actually incredibly severe for the Chinese. Used language in Chinese that is rarely used by the regime to denounce the testing of the nuclear weapon, which was a very big step for the Chinese to get much more centrally involved in those North Korean discussions. So that's, I think, the positive side. The real question mark for China is its domestic politics. Their foreign policy is their domestic policy, even more so than ours, because the Chinese leadership has made a Faustian deal. Stability internally and maintenance of the communist regime in exchange for growth, growth, and growth. And they've been able to deliver on extraordinary rates of growth for the longest period in modern history. And now that growth has been cut by, at least the last time I saw, 50%. So it's still positive, which beats us, right? But it's cut in half. And so when that growth starts to unravel or slows down even more, there is a wellspring of domestic sort of crisis, social crisis in China that could be a real ticking time bomb, right? There's very little social safety net. There are generations of people who really have lived under this very strange sort of half communist, half capitalist regime. And so the real fear is that a decline in economic growth will stoke domestic unrest, which then leads to more reactionary foreign policy, because there's no better way to tamp down domestic unrest than to stoke nationalist fires against a foreign enemy. So that's the kind of catalyst that I think makes it kind of particularly complicated moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I was in China about 4 years ago, 3 years ago now, and I met with President Hu's youth advisor, who's a friend of a friend, and he spent a year at Harvard, and so we could talk in English and we could talk privately. He said he was with President Hu probably once a week. He said, don't think of President Hu as a dictator. He said, think of him as chairman of the board, and he has these other people that he has to bring on board. He said China is a frightening place because it's violent and people have strong passions in China. And everything that you said, Amy, he bore out from the sort of inner. He said today, he said, China is a great power. He said for 200 years, China was picked on by its neighbors. He says, I don't mean the United States. I mean the surrounding countries. And he said, this will never happen again. China is a great power, he said. But we know that you Americans were friends with Britain, and they gave you leadership of the world. China wants to be friends with America, so you will give us leadership of the world. So if you look at the sort of logical progression of what's happening with respect to China, and if you can think of China and sort of set aside for a minute this turmoil that is always possible inside, what you have is China returning to its rightful place as the world's middle kingdom. China is the place where the barbarians come and bring tribute. China was the first to develop silk. Silk was high tech, and they maintained a tight grip on silk. Gunpowder, the compass. They discovered longitude. Their fleets were the great fleets that sailed with the monsoons. China was the center of humanity. When the Romans wanted silk, They got it indirectly along the Silk Road from China. They couldn't make it themselves, and the only thing that the Chinese would accept in return was Roman gold. There was nothing else that Rome had to offer China. They were just one of the barbarian states that people didn't see. That is the Chinese tradition. And so as they look at this, what they're doing is right now they're working for their domestic growth. There's a symbiosis with the United States. They need our market so they can grow their employment. But as their wealth increases, they'll need our market less. And as their economy grows stronger, we'll become more in the traditional role of one of these outlying states, and they'll expect to receive their due respect and deference in the world. So it's not going to be long before China asks us, why do you need aircraft carriers based and sailing around China? Our people don't appreciate this. Now, we think the Western Pacific belongs to us. I mean, we won it the hard way in World War II, and we've been there ever since. But on a historical time frame, it belongs to China. And imagine this, the year is 2030. You're having problems along the Mexican border. Mexico has 150 million people, the United States has 400 million people, and there's constant crisis and vigilante groups and shootings and so forth. And China does business with both barbarian countries. And China says, really says, please, you know, this is bad for all of us with these conflicts. Would it help you Americans if we Chinese would send a couple of aircraft carriers to around the border to show you that the Chinese people are peaceful and earnestly desire a peaceful solution to this growing border conflict between the United States and Mexico? Of course, you'd find this outrageous. And you would chuckle thinking about this. But this is, in fact, the kind of scenario that is very possible if all of the current trends are extrapolated. So there's no doubt about it, China's our most important bilateral relationship. It's a long-term relationship, and it's changing. The dynamics of it are changing as we speak. Is this inevitable that we should have a home port for Chinese aircraft carriers in San Diego? No. It really is a function of what Bill Schneider was talking about in the last panel. It's about growth. Can we grow America economically? Or do we simply become a transporting nation who takes Chinese goods and services and then welcomes them here and then we market them and sell them?